YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Raelia. We'll be reacting to some law development around the gaming industry today. We are all gacha players here. I am a big gacha player. I gacha a lot of stuff. So, and low-key, I kind of hate the monetization because it's so expensive. It's very profitable for the company. So I'm interested in seeing what kind of new law is being put in place to protect consumers. Let's go!
Welcome back, everyone. Today's video is a true bombshell for the games industry. This is one of those things that can have true impact, so let me explain. What just happened is the European Union just rewrote the rules on premium currency in games. Of course, that's the home of Ubisoft, of CD Projekt, of DICE, of Remedy, and so many other companies.
Of MiHoYo, of ZZZ, of Wuthering Waves, of, what else? Love and Deep Space. Right? When they say premium game currency, they're talking about like paid game currency, yeah?
Companies. And make no mistake, the new rules that they have just laid out.
With this action, the CPC network emphasizes, I think they spelled emphasize wrong, the need for video games and their commercial practices to be adapted to children and to not exploit their vulnerabilities. Okay.
Could change.
I'm a child.
Utterly. Actually
protect
change
me.
The games that you play. So you know those bundles where you've got to
Yes.
buy more currency than the item that you want costs, or perhaps the idea of limited time events.
Honkai Impact Rails. I forgot the name. Honkai Impact Rails spotted.
Of no refunds and digital purchases. These are all being fought against by legislators. And when the EU takes action, it's a large enough block that it can reverberate around the world. And as evidence, how's that USB-C charger on our phone working out? There's a lot to talk about. Strap in. This one could actually, honestly...
Wait, what does that have to do with the USB-C charge thing? Oh, is that when like Apple tried to do away with those ports on the phone and then the EU actually like fought back and then ruled that they must include like charger slots and stuff on the phones? Honkai Impact hold on, what's the name? Honkai Star Rails. Okay, Honkai Star Rails. I got it. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think they fought back. I remember that. That's why future iPhones now suddenly have slots again.
Pretty good. Oddly enough, you've got EU legislation to thank for the standardized phone charger situation and for many, the ability to play ROMs on their iPhone. But now we seem to have EU legislation to thank.
Oh, sorry, not taking it back. They were trying to use lightning ports. That's different from USB-C. And then they had to rule it so that it's standardized. I got it. Because they were forcing you to buy chargers that were made by Apple. I remember.
Being threatened. So
sort of.
In September 2024, the EU proposed the Digital Fairness Act that was targeting all the practices online that make using digital services miserable. And in particular, it called out dark patterns in video games as one of the targets.
Ooh, dark patterns in online interfaces that can unfairly influence their decisions. For example, by putting unnecessary pressure on consumers through false urgency claims. So like a banner that's like a temporary thing and you might not get it for another 3 years. Is that a dark pattern? Addictive design of digital services that push consumers to keep using the service or spending more money, such as gambling-like features in video games. Oh, they coming after gacha. Personalized targeting that takes advantage of consumers' vulnerabilities, such as showing targeted advertising that exploits personal problems. What? Difficulty with managing digital subscription makes it excessively hard to unsubscribe. I hate that so much. Like whenever I sign something, I need to know how it ends. Okay, I gotta know how easy it is to cancel first. Oh yeah, I know it's not only about gacha. Yeah, I know like in-game currency and like other cash grab practices are getting so common. Problematic commercial practices of social media influencers. Some of these practices may already go against existing EU consumer law and other EU law. For example, the Digital Services Act and the Audiovisual. Okay, it doesn't explain what it is. I have to comment on here on that dark pattern and addictive design. There was a phase in my career, IRL career, where I tried to pivot into user interface design, so UX design, product development. And I remember like my mentor at the time talking to me about dark patterns. And sometimes you as a designer know you have to go against what you know is good practice because that's what the business wants. It's just business, isn't it?
That's basically the gross manipulative techniques that trick and strong arm money out of people, obviously, especially applying to people who are not yet adults. And this is fairly weighty because in the EU alone, games are obviously big business. Revenues have been going up in the EU. Online game spending in 2018 represented 74% of turnover coming from online revenue and 83% by 2022. That's all of those.
Why do they keep coming back to Honkai? I know it's not just about gacha, but this is like gacha is what's most applicable to me. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. It's more for kids. Yeah, I think I remember seeing gosh, who's that guy that does investigative journalism in the gaming industry and online spaces? The one that has a really good setup and like has very good production value. He did like a 2-part or 3-part video on like online gambling. And yeah, I think this law would be needed.
Patterns actually working and getting digital currency money out of people. But
like online casinos.
Target the most
CoffeeZilla, yes, thank you.
And there's no one more vulnerable in the eyes of the law than children. Children who spend an average of €31 a month on online games.
Let me read this. Parents whose children spend money. What claimed the average spend per child amongst parents whose children spend money in game? Who's the 4% that gives their kids 80 plus euros on video games? Y'all have some very, very lenient and generous parents. Gosh, I had to at the time when I was a kid and I wanted to buy stuff in game, I had to like sneakily try to take like $20 out of my piggy bank and then go like buy like a untraceable gift card, like Visa gift card, using that cash on my off time at my part-time job without my parents knowing, so I can use it on games. Like they would never have allowed me to spend that money. I'm surprised that parents just actively like let their kids spend €80. That's a lot.
According to data from Video Games Europe. Well, that's actually went down from 2023. I guess that's good. Everyone's feeling a little bit of the economic pinch, but it's not stopped the EU from taking action to protect kids, basically, from predatory premium currency models. And in situations like this, there's often a great offender, right, that is held up as an example of something doing everything wrong. So you might wonder, is it an Activision game? Is it Ultimate Team from the EA football games? Maybe it was Roblox. No, today,
Dress to
game
impress.
about horses. It's called Star Stable. You've probably never heard of it, but if this all does turn out good, we'll have the horse girls to thank. This is Star Stable.
Horse girls rise up! As me.
Online, it comes from a Swedish developer called Star Stable Entertainment, and it is the game that may have just rewritten rules.
Damn, that's a smooth jump.
In the EU. So yeah, thanks, horse girls. Now, it turns out that Star Stable just uses all of the premium currency tactics in the book, which makes it a pretty awesome example, right? Especially because it is targeted at a younger audience. So in March 24, the Swedish Consumer Agency filed a complaint with the EU-wide Consumer Protection Cooperation Network. That's a mouthful. And that complaint alleged that Star Stable Entertainment were targeting children and using...
When are that Wolves girls going to rise up? Can you develop a game that targets wolf girls first? And implement microtransactions so I can report you. Let's read this. With misleading currency and purchase prompts, the popular online, it's an online game, Star Stable. I've never heard of this game. Tries to get children to spend money. This is what Sweden's consumers think, who are now reporting to the Swedish Consumer Agency. As a child, you should be able to play without risking being cheated in this way. I didn't know there was an online game about horses. I want to play.
Commercial practices that breached EU consumer regulations. Now,
Oh, it's an iOS game, so I can download it.
Those allegations.
Nice.
They found that the game made direct appeals to children in their ads, that they were using pressuring techniques like FOMO, which is particularly despicable when it's not, on adults.
Yeah.
And there was a lack of transparency on purchases.
FOMO is a
and
crazy
loads more
tactic.
things.
It's so useful.
I mean, here's an example of one that's
It
particularly
works.
rough. They were responsible for influencers promoting the game to kids without any disclosure of the spending risk. So, in short, it's bloody well damning. Star Stable Entertainment now have a month to address complaints and propose solutions with their game, but what matters for our purposes today is the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, we can just call the CPCN. They have laid out what they want. So I'll spell it out via an example. This is what should happen in the ideal world. You, dear gamer, want to buy yourself a new horse.
Oh, they put horse breeds behind a paid gate, and I'm guessing better performing or horses that jump better than others, whatever, probably cost more, just like real life. They just model the actual horse market. A paywall, thank you. I am so tired. My brain's like barely functional. Why are you saying like that's a good thing, that FOMO works? It's not a good thing, but FOMO works. FOMO works. That's why the limited banners are a thing. That's why nobody pays attention to the standard banner, because it's always there.
See that your new horse costs
Unfortunate.
300 star coins. The store tells you that's around £5, so it just lets you buy 300 coins exactly. You buy exactly what you need for the horse, rather than the current bundles that exist of 200 coins or 400 coins, meaning that you always have to buy with some wastage, which just ends up giving the company more money. So in short, no obfuscation bullshit, no weird tactics. And worst of all for these companies, this will have them bloody well shaking. You'd have to have a refund policy.
I heard he said bloody well shitting.
And the horse. And none of this would be pitched as a limited time event where you have got
See,
to
it says
get the
Winter's
thing.
Last Whisper. Last. That is a word that does give you a sense of urgency. Bro, it's time to bid adieu to Winter's frosty embrace. Yeah, I used to work in product design and like writing up these prompts. Let me tell you, this kind of article goes through like at least like 3 to 4 people's eyes. And everybody's going to have a hand in making it sound a lot more interesting and urgent and baity to try and get people to come back.
Right now. So that's an example then of how these policies
Words are very,
should be
very
applied,
powerful
and
when it
each
comes to
is indeed
selling.
a massive win for consumers. But that would not matter if this amounted to nothing. You could look at all this and think, right, so some Swedish horse game has got a slap on the wrist. No, it's more than that. This seems to have backbone. So here's the big important bit. These solutions are the backbone of what the European Consumer Organization calls key principles for trustworthy gaming environments. And these could cause huge problems for anyone who is using premium currency.
Hi,
When I say this to
Crocovite.
take the
Hi.
foundations of the game industry
How are
economy,
you?
I absolutely mean it. So these, which I'm going to spell out for you, are the minimum requirements for purchasing and using virtual currencies in the EU. And what's
Okay.
neat is the philosophy behind them. So the CPCN considers these premium currencies as an equivalent to the real money that is used to purchase them. And
Hold on. As digital representations of real-world monetary value when they serve no purpose other than, or for which other functions are secondary to providing for a method of payment, the purchase, please run this through. Okay, every politician, if you're watching a VTuber, please, I beg of you, run all of your policies through like ChatGPT or something. Don't do that actually, but like, please dumb it down. One of the reasons why nobody knows, and like, it's so hard to understand a lot of this jargon. When they serve no purpose other than the purchase of digital content or service in video games. I think that's a reasonable consideration.
that for them means that they are just as worthy of legal scrutiny. So you can see how that is in a way a mindset shift that paves the way for actually treating these as they are. So just think about the last game that you played that had a premium currency in it.
The last game I played was like 3 hours ago when I was playing Love in Deep Space, talking to my virtual boyfriend and literally telling my friend Sunny in DMs that I'm gonna swipe on the next banner.
Whatever that game is, I want you to keep it in mind. And with that in your mind, I'm now going to go through the various different practices that this targets.
No.
Prices for premium currency packs that are a little more than the available product. So you've got to buy extra coins, extra gems, whatever it may be. Obfuscation of how much currency is worth by always pairing currency with other items or multiple currency options. As an example, I think World of Warcraft may actually fall for that because it includes Trader's Tender in one of the new mount bundles. Another one.
That's a mount? Dude, I never played World of Warcraft, but I thought for some reason the graphics were better than this. This is very granular. Yeah, it does look like the mesh, the fabric, like the texture packs does look like they're from like 20 years ago. I don't want to make fun of people for spending money on this because like people watch me. So let's move on.
Tender in one of the new mount bundles. Another one. A complete lack of a refund option for making currency purchases or even for in-game items. So there would have to be a refund policy. That's something none of us are used to in these games. Also, FOMO practices to encourage buying. Those are going to be looked at, so some of those may no longer be allowed. And all of these practices are now something that the EU can hold against developers and publishers, even more so if the parental controls of said game are not up to scratch. So it's less a case of me saying, can you think of any game that falls into those categories? And it's more me saying, can you think of a game that doesn't fall into those criteria? It's fairly humongous, which might...
Minecraft, Solitaire, Minesweeper. I can't think of any other. There are those like... Have you guys played Episode? It's literally like a storytelling game where other users can write a story and set it up, and you as a player can assume the position of the main character and walk through someone else's story. And you get like choices. Usually these are very like, it usually appeals to like teenage girls or like very young teenagers. And it's almost always like some sort of love story, like a poorly written love story. And sometimes you can go on a date with Sebastian or either like kiss the guy you're interested in or spit in his face and call him ugly and walk off. And then obviously you want to be like, well, I'm interested, I'm going to choose kiss, but you have to spend like $5. Does that falls under this, yes?
Indeed be the point here. We know this is something the EU have been thinking about in other circumstances than just Star Stable. As an example, in September 2024, the European Consumer Organization published a report on popular online games. And in that report, they targeted Diablo 4, EA Sports FC 24, Minecraft, Fortnite, and a bunch of others. And
they have Minecoin.
Virtual currencies work. They were not thrilled on what they found in those games, right? Because many of them, well, they did the same things that, Star Stable did that we do not like. And that's right.
Hold on. Why does Minecraft even need another currency, or why do you pay for it? Isn't Minecraft like modded to hell? Can't you just get anything you want with mods?
We can say that Electronic Arts and Blizzard Entertainment are being directly targeted by this body. That really is something. So it's no wonder that the BEUC will be holding workshops to help European companies implement these new principles. Because it seems they may actually have to implement them. Everything that they previously thought was acceptable pretty much now isn't. And here's the shocking thing. That's not my commentary. That is what the industry response has been. So we know they are shaking in their boots.
Yep.
It ain't surprising the industry bodies aren't thrilled about this, and a big shout out to one of our Bellular Games members, Neo Nebulosa, for directing us to this stuff. So the European
Nebulosa, good work.
Federation and the Video Games Europe, or two groups basically, they've published a joint statement that expresses their disappointment with the findings. Let's read their statement. Quote, "We are disappointed by the lack of engagement from the CPC network in creating these principles, which introduce new legal theories and misguided interpretations of EU consumer law that will create confusion and disruption for European customers." Sidebar. Oh no, we're going to be disrupted by sort of annoying predatory stuff going away. What an awful disruption.
Yeah, what an awful disruption that I can't prey on the people that propped me up in the first place. What the heck? Of course they're gonna throw a fit. Of course. Not even surprised. This is a EU law though, so is it gonna come over to like other continents? Bedrock players Bedrock Edition, you are forced to use the marketplace and can't have mods. Oh, that's like a difficulty setting, I guess. Or like almost like a difficulty setting because you can't mod your way through. And kids will play official stuff. I see. Of course, yeah, why wouldn't they be upset? Of course they would be upset. Lack of engagement from the CPC network in creating these principles. Are they talking about like the principles not being engaging enough to make the money? Misguided interpretation of EU consumer law. Create confusion and disruption for consumers. Bro, I don't think consumers give a poop. If you make all this stuff free, I'm pretty sure everybody will be happy. Or if you find another way for us to pay for it. I would rather do like more dailies to gain, like to save up a sort of currency to roll in gacha games than to actually swipe. Influenced quite a bit. Yeah, I guess that makes sense because as a company, especially if you're producing one product, if you now have to maintain two separate versions of the same product just to please like one regional law, it probably costs you more in the long run. Although with this, because gacha is so lucrative or microtransaction is so lucrative, I'm interested in seeing what the company's response is.
Sidebar. Oh no, we're going to be disrupted
because the iPhone thing is a physical product, slightly different.
Annoying predatory stuff going away. What an awful disruption. Back to the statement. It will also present a challenge to the industry's future growth and could even deprive millions of consumers access to their favorite games. Now that last bit is the interesting thing. So understandably, right, these groups representing the most powerful players in the industry did quite like things the way that they were.
Of course.
Change is dangerous, especially to the bottom line, and especially change like this. But
I hate that, the bottom line.
Wrong,
you guys are already making so much money.
Audiences do actually understand premium currencies by and large right now. And when implementing currencies, these companies were following, their best legal guidance, and now that guidance has changed. I guess just like how so many phones had like a bespoke charging cable until the rules just changed in the middle of the game. So now they've got to get used to these new rules. And what'll sting is the impact on their bottom line. They're not wrong about the potential impacts of all of this. Now, big companies like Ubisoft can probably absorb the costs of any legal challenges or damage from rebuilding their premium currency systems. They'll probably spend a whole lot to try and figure out ways around these principles.
Stinky
As
Ubisoft.
for smaller companies, well, they may not think that's so easy. But where things will be dramatic is the group's final warning, because it's the most threatening one. It's the idea that players in the EU may just be locked out of video games. They'd say with a game like Overwatch, right, that they would simply choose to geo-restrict access to the game rather than change their monetization model or to just continue the game as normal and risk EU lawsuits. It could just be they look at the EU and think, you know what, we make enough from the States and other countries, we really don't need them.
Yeah, or you could say like, well, maybe we project if we release this game in EU, we'll make this amount of money. And even though we'll be fined and taken to court and have to pay lawyers and all that, we'll still make money, right? And then so let's do it. Hello, Arfurf. Hi, Yudi. Hi.
That being said, the EU population is kind of huge. Overall GDP is obviously a very, very flawed metric, but as an example, right, just Googling this here in 2024, the EU's nominal GDP was about 17.9 trillion and 1/6 of global nominal GDP, which is quite a lot of money, and a hell of a lot of that GDP globally will be in other countries like, say, China, where a lot of these companies will not be able to go in and directly monetize. That could actually mean that they will feel the need to change. And in a way, there are two wolves inside me.
Oh, I guess like Chinese censorship laws. Yeah, okay. I guess they have like a tighter grip on games and products like that. His face. I'm sorry I paused on such an unflattering angle.
Fighting, right? I suppose one of them is the pragmatic wolf. The other one is the almost like the...
Wolf mentioned? Neuron activated?
There are two wolves inside me who are fighting, right? I suppose one of them is the pragmatic wolf. The other one is the almost like the last vestiges of some sort of libertarian idealism that says, let the market decide. If the gamers do not like the bad practices, the gamers shall not partake in them, and the market will solve the problem.
That's not me. I don't think I'm that wolf. He's a furry! It clocked it right from the beginning.
I wish that was true, but I feel there's almost a faux idealism in so much of that. because these psychological hooks, these psychological triggers, they do actually work.
I don't like his haircut.
We're in a world where you can very easily
not this guy, the
some
gaming
sound enough,
characters.
Philosophical arguments very much against regulation and all of that. And I totally get that. I'm fairly sympathetic towards that in many cases. But the thing is, we've also got to be pragmatic. And a part of that is being a bit humble about the human condition. And the fact of the matter is, these practices are not popular. People do not like them. Yet, people's behavior does continue. And
I don't like having to swipe for my boyfriends, but I want to see my boyfriend, so I swipe. Damn, somebody do a study on my condition. The wolf condition. I don't know, guys. Like, I see you guys talk about gacha in Discord all the time, right? I don't play, ZZ or Honkai or anything like that anymore, but I see a lot of you guys still do. And you discuss like new characters all the time and whether or not some character is worthy of rolling. I don't think any of us like gacha, like spending money on stuff, but there's always that debate of, is this character worth my money and worth my time? I think that's quite an interesting study. Gacha gamers are the problem. That's not what I said. Whoa, hands up above the air. No, that's not what I said.
These obviously are bad. And as people who enjoy video games, we see that as these types of practices derive more and more revenue, they then become what the companies focus on.
Yeah.
And that is worse for the actual...
It's just a gradual evolution from like the free-to-play RPGs back in the day with whales, right? The whales propped up most of the games, most of the devs' salaries. So yeah, as a business, you want to focus on those players instead. Cancel right? No! Google Docs, please. We've had enough of those.
Video games. Because I suppose in a way, how much of game industry revenue comes essentially from psychological manipulation and these various business strategies that are designed to rake in revenue in a way that's not like really tied to the experience of a game that you purchase. We've just seen the share of that increase, and it's no wonder that as that is increased, the rest of us have become less and less satisfied with games. So in a way, if this does hurt the revenue of a bunch of companies and unfortunately leads to a bunch of job losses because these types of practices are no longer viable, good riddance.
I don't know. I agree with this law, but at the same time, a lot of the gaming marketing and wording choices and, dark patterns used in video games are present in other industries as well. Where do you think the gaming industry got them from in the first place? I guess this is being singled out right now because this is targeting children. Children having access to like electronics nowadays does increase the chances of them getting addicted to stuff like this, as opposed to like getting addicted to an industry from like textiles or like fashion or like curtains or something, you know what I mean? There's easier access of these products to kids. I suppose this is why they're targeting this industry specifically. My brain cells are too fried right now to think about this stuff deeply.
Riddance, absolutely. Let the companies fail, let those jobs go down. How we run things should be a dialogue between the private and public sectors, and in a case like this, I think it's an example of the public sector, right? The people essentially saying, we actually do not like this practice. We don't want this to be the rules of the game. We want the rules of the game to change, to be more robust. And the market will, once it adapts to that, find a solution. And if the new rule set is a better rule set, then that should be a net good. But of course, none of this will matter if there's no enforcement. Because one country making a digital consumer policy often will find difficulty in enforcing it because you're just one little guy, Mr. Belgium, right? That's why even though Belgium has banned loot boxes, so many games simply just ignore that and still operate in the country. Like in World of Warcraft in the new raid, one of the bosses is basically a slot machine boss. We always have the joke that for the person in our team that's in Belgium, that boss just can't drop any loot. I don't know, there's an EU firewall or a Belgian firewall. That's a joke, but you get the point. As much as many people have kind of went, Belgium, take him down. It hasn't really mattered because it's just Belgium, just one little guy. It's a bit different here, though. And that's because the EU is, 26 other countries.
Yeah, it's huge.
In 2023, it was worth 25.7 billion euro in game revenues. That's a lot of revenues. And we know
That's a
that
lot
the
of
legislators
zeros.
are willing to take on the likes of Apple and Google when their rulings are being defied. They have done that. But more than that, the companies inside the EU are, part of a big global network, and that does mean that whenever USB-C cables become standardized in the EU, they then become standardized everywhere because of manufacturing limitations.
Right, that's
sure
what I'm
Apple would have
saying.
loved to have continued just selling people Lightning adapters.
I hate Lightning ports as a grumpy Apple user. I hated those. I was actually so happy they switched back. Such an annoying thing to have to be like, we're gonna be different from everybody for the sole purpose of making your life difficult until you'll give us more money. Grr, I don't like that.
In the States, but ultimately they seem to have saw the way the wind was blowing and made the big change to USB-C.
They look
no
cool.
One wanted
They
to
look
have,
smaller
of course, a whole
and
factory just
sleeker.
making EU-only phones, and again,
But I don't like them.
and thinking about the impact that would have had on the whole ecosystem of manufacturing partners, blah blah blah. So you can see how with hardware it does kind of make sense. We can see those software examples where it's not really the same thing. It's not like you can just go and get an emulator for your iPhone in America. Like you can in the EU. So
Don't look at my
question then
emulators.
is, will developers want to risk losing a large slice of that EU-derived money? Or will they simply have to ship a cut down and less exploitative version of their in-game monetization to European countries? If so, it puts them in a fun little dilemma where the American gamer may get a transparently worse deal than, say, the European
Damn, get
gamer.
fucked. Us in the West. Oh no, North America.
Then you
Getting
can say, well, compare
shafted.
your store to mine. My one is a bit more respectful, doesn't have as much FOMO, doesn't have as many tricksy bundles and things that basically feel like a scam. And that'll be a bad look. That's the dilemma that these companies face. And in a way, it's all thanks to a game about horses.
Hey,
So, hero of
horse
the day,
girls.
Horse girls. I guess that's a thing. Okay.
Woo.
Tell you what, though, if you want another story, another big, grand, juicy
Let's go,
out
horse
this one. It also
girls. You're
hits the
doing me
EU.
a solid
It
right
also
now. You're
hits
doing me proud. Also, can I just say, the horse animations in that game actually look very smooth. It actually looks very realistic and smooth. What the heck? And then also, can I just say, tomorrow we're going to be playing Schedule 1. All right, that's an indie game developed by one man, I think. And what? It has made him a millionaire? Billionaire? It's like 25 Canadian. And I think they've said they've sold like over 2 million copies. So, and that's within a week. All right? Companies are like probably freaking going red in the face trying to emulate what some indie developers can do. All you need is some passion and a lot of patience and a lot of luck. But it is possible. Imagine having bad horses in a horse game. I've seen those. Yo, I played horse games growing up. Some of those horses are pretty bad. Pretty bad. Yeah, horse girls are forever. Brownies are forever. That was interesting. I want to see the development, but stuff with like legal system changes, industry changes like this, it's always like such a trickle down effect, and it takes so long for things to move.